Coming up on The Returned.
December 16th of 2022 was going to be the first Christmas that I would see my grandson. Devin's going to have his son. 10 minutes later, she called me back to ask if I'd heard from Devin. I figured he was with you. No, he's got to go pick up Grayson. He went by himself. He knocked on the door. She opened the door and opened fire on it. My 7-year-old grandson was in the home. She continued to shoot him 9 times. Devin died instantly.
Hi, and welcome to The Returned. The truth always follows you back. Hi, and welcome to The Returned, a place where we share near-death stories, out-of-body experiences, spiritual awakenings, signs from spirit, and the journeys of healers and light workers from around the world. Today, we sit with Jackie Rubio, who quite literally walked through fire. She died, was brought back, and returned, changed. Years later, after the murder of her son, the communication began, proving to her that death is not the end. Jackie, welcome to The Returned.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to be here. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're so welcome. Jackie, before the fire, before the after-death communication, what was life like and who were you? Also, did spirituality or religion play a role in your life back then?
So, I would say a really, really tough childhood, really abusive childhood on all ends of the spectrum. And I unfortunately took that pattern with me. And I was a teen mom. I had 4 kids by the time I was 23. I had terrible choice in men, in the partnerships that I chose and the people I had around my kids. So unfortunately, I did follow that same pattern. And I also got into drugs, and alcohol. There was a time period where I was really devoted to church. I went to church and it helped with my meth addiction, and I was extremely, I would say, grateful. And I was very interested
Yeah.
in God. I was always interested in God, even though I wasn't raised that way whatsoever. I had this innate, like, part of my being was just like there's a God and I need to please God and I need to obey God, and I didn't have that growing up, so I don't quite know where that came from, but it was really part of me, yes, for sure. And my life was just chaos. For my 4 kids that I was raised, I was a single mom. After the addiction ended and the church kind of fell apart, I was really hard alcoholic. And so I was single. Had 4 kids. I was like trying to raise them by myself, and I was really out of control. I was one of the like more like fun fun alcoholics. I was really overweight. And so I was just kind of one of the guys, and I'd party all night and shoot whiskey, and I had horses, and we just kind of had a real wild lifestyle. And it wasn't always bad, but I always say it's good until it's not. And that's sort of what happened to me. My alcoholism was always tough on my kids because, they got to get up and go to school the next day. And they, got people running in and out of their house. They got a mom that's out howling at the moon all the time. But I really did, I really did start to struggle, um, with like a physical alcohol dependency. I mean, I would start to have the shakes, I would get the DVTs, hallucinations. And that was really different for me. All of a sudden, I
Wow.
wasn't out partying because I could just drink a few drinks and I couldn't stand up. I was blacked out drunk. I was just like, so I just didn't, nobody wanted me out, go out anymore. I couldn't control myself. So, that was how things were for me. And then, I went to rehab and I learned how to meditate, which was a concept I had never heard of before that. Um, and I did really like a lot of self inner reflection work, things like that in rehab. And when I got out, I was sober, but I just continue with the same, sort of like relationship pattern. And I immediately entered into a relationship with a man. And just to be polite on the show, I just say he had more demons than I did. And that's, saying it lightly. So, we had been in a relationship about a year and a half, and I had bought a home. I was so proud of myself. I'd maybe been in the home for a couple of days, and I knew bad stuff was happening with him. Like I could feel like he was cheating, doing drugs. And it wasn't, I couldn't get the answers and I didn't know I had no coping skills. So I did what I knew how to do, and I just went out and drank that day. Um, and I know I have very limited memory because I was blacked out. And I know that we were a physical altercation. And, I just got like some of his paperwork, and I went to the bathroom to, burn it, basically to send a message. And it was an older mobile home. So that had like, I don't know, not a very good bathtub in it, and it blew up. It was like chemical, and it blew up, and it blew up on me. And he left, and that trailer was on fire. And I just remember a couple of things. Had my hands on down, and I have really bad burns on my hands now, but I had my hands going up and down the hallway trying to find my way out because I was on fire and there was so much smoke that I was disoriented. And of course, I was, out of my mind on alcohol. But so I just remember putting my hands on the wall, and I kept saying to myself, I'd go down the wall and I couldn't find the end. And so I'd start back over to try to find the other end. And I thought, my gosh, it's not that big of a hallway. It's a mobile home. And then I just saw myself going under. And I literally just remembered saying, oh my God, this is how I'm going to die. And this is how my kids are going to remember me. And that was it. I literally I was deceased. And luckily, I guess when the fire department, I somehow I did make it out of the hallway. I had apparently made it into the living room because there's, windows there. And I made it into the living room, fell over the couch, and was on the couch like this. So when the cops came, they couldn't get in one side of the house because it was burning. But they saw through the windows that there was a human in there. So they were able to get in through the window and drag me out. So I was deceased and resuscitated at that point. Um, that
Wow.
began my journey into, I was in the burn unit for 6 weeks. I had three skin graft surgeries. I was third degree burned on 33% of my body. And um, I, I just woke up in the hospital. I was in a coma for 10 days, and I woke up in the hospital completely disoriented. Um, but and I also had a really long recovery after that. But I want to say to your audience that, something good did come out of it, because that's the last time I've had a drink. It was September 7th of 2020.
So you've said basically you're unconscious, but something shifted inside of you when you came back. I know you didn't have a near-death experience where you went somewhere, but something shifted inside of you. What do you think that change was?
The change was, for me, I just had this incredible thirst to find out if literally I had died and that was the last thing my kids remembered about me. Where would I have went? What would have happened to me? What, and that was a burning desire for me at that point, like trying to figure out,
Mhm.
okay, if I never came back, if I wasn't able to get resuscitated, if that literally would have been the end of my life here, Jackie Rubio, on this earth, where would I have went afterwards? Because I just knew I went somewhere. And if you believe the Bible the way that I was taught, I certainly wouldn't have went somewhere nice after being, a hellraiser and, dying that way. So, and I don't remember asking for forgiveness right before I died or any of that stuff that might have saved me and took me to heaven. I literally just remembered thinking, oh my God, this is what my kids are going to remember about me, and this is it. Like,
Mm.
this is literally how I die. Um, So I think that was just a huge part of like what I came back with was I started really like thinking out of the box and seeking and looking. And one of the things, so I became a little bit obsessed with near-death experiences. I read
Mhm.
tons of books on near-death experiences. I watched tons and tons of interviews on it. It really opened me up, I would say my conscious up a little bit spiritually, made me think um more about, is there reincarnation? Is the the Christianity I was taught, is that not really, what other people think? Because I don't know. I'm from the West. I think everybody thinks that way. Like so yeah, that was a big part of what something shifted. It was just I came back seeking.
So that was a real turning point in your life, and congratulations on giving up on alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah,
That
thank
was
you.
probably really, really hard, hey?
Yeah, it was, it was pretty hard because, you're gonna come back and I won't lie. I mean, that's the most pain I've ever been in ever. It was so painful,
Yeah.
and that's normally how I get through pain would be by drinking. So I had to do it
Yeah.
without drinking.
Have you ever thought or wondered why you were brought into the family dynamic that you were brought into?
When I was growing up, I just felt really sorry for myself, and I just felt really confused, and I just, would sort of blame everything I was going through on those circumstances. And I have to say now I have a way different outlook. A much different outlook. Like
Yeah.
I know that my big mouth, crazy soul up there was just like, no, we want it. We can do it. We can do all of this. We can handle all of these hardships. And I know that like my loved ones, my guys were like, no, 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 you need to tone it down. And I was like, no, I can do it. So I have a way different outlook on it now. But then before all this, I really felt victimized. I really felt like
Mm,
I felt sorry for myself. I felt like I was being punished. I just felt like I was wrong. I
I
did
see.
something wrong all the time to deserve this. And luckily now I don't feel that way.
Well, I'm really happy that that night became your night of sobriety.
Yes.
I really am. And you should be really proud of yourself. You
Yes.
really should.
And
Because you literally had to walk through fire to wake the heck up, eh?
yes, that is true.
Oh my goodness.
Little hard-headed.
Sounds like it, but that's okay, right? How would you feel about taking us in to what happened to your son?
Well, um, you know, my oldest son, his name's Devin, and he was quite a bit different than the rest of our family. Devin was a super moral, straight-laced kid, and so for him, the household he grew up in, that environment was really not okay for him. He really loved
Mm,
church. That was a big deal. I left the church. He definitely stayed in church. He loved the youth pastor and the youth pastor's wife and his pastor. He'd much rather spend his holidays, somewhere like that, which, that's fair. And um, we we had a kind of a on and off relationship because he had super great boundaries with me. If I was drinking, I was out. He loved me. I know that he did. He loved me, but he was very much, this is what I allow in my life and this is what I don't. And I don't care if you're my mother. I don't allow this in my life. Or if you're my brother, or, that's just, he was very strict that way. He was sort of like really black and white when it came to that. So when I had the fire, he came, I was in Texas when that happened, and he came to Texas and we all spent some time together as a family. And he just saw like my burns. I mean, I didn't have any hair, I didn't have an ear. I mean, it was just like, it was pretty traumatizing. And he also saw that when I come out of that, I really was a different person. As soon as I put this, sobriety down, I started a women's empowerment nonprofit because I wanted to help other women who probably were going through what I went through. And he began to really kind of open towards me and open towards fixing our relationship. And that honestly was like my my gosh, it was my biggest thing I wanted was to repair the relationship I had with my kids after all that we'd been through and all I put
Yeah.
them through. But and so Devin got married young. He married a girl from his youth group that he'd known in youth group in middle school, and he was 20 and she was 18, and they had a baby. They had my grandson. It's like super early on in the relationship. Now he was, he saved himself for marriage. She was his first partner, and he just really he he walked the walk. He really like was very, very much that kind of person. He cared about his paying his taxes, his 401k. He just was such a like a I don't know, just so straight laced. That's all I could keep describing him as. But um, and then as soon as they got married and she got pregnant and had the baby, I mean, it was an instantaneous change. She didn't want him to sleep in the
Mm.
room with them. She really wanted nothing to do with him. She was like really protective in over the top way of of my grandson. None of Devin's family was allowed to see him. It was a lot. Um, and then so the marriage ended pretty quickly. It was a couple years, 3 years after they got married, and the baby was like a couple years old. Um, and she actually like very quickly entered into a same-sex relationship, and that really confused Devin. He, because of how they both I thought they were both on the same, page when it came to church and things like that. And she breastfed my grandson till he was 3.5. So in the state of Oregon, he wasn't allowed to have any overnight visitations. I mean, he really just got railroaded. And it was so heartbreaking because since Devin was little, and I say little lightly because he was actually 6'4". He was a really tall kid. Um, but ever since he was little, all he wanted to do was be a father and a husband. Remember when my niece and him would be put a baby in the stroller, and I mean they're 4 and 3 or something like that, walking around, and people ask him what they're doing. Devin would say that she was his wife and this was his daughter, and they were going for a walk, and this is who he was. And so he
Yeah.
really struggled with like parenting time, and then he had two moms to deal with, so he really had like the women were really more in control over how to raise his child, and he did the best he could with it. Then he sort of like was starting to wake up. He had met this woman, he had a fiance, and she came from a really big family, and they were kind of loud and a little rowdy like I was, which always cracked me up, that he was going to marry into this family. But and they were just like making a life for themselves. And I had um come back to Oregon from Texas because his ex-wife started just taking his visits. Like he didn't even hardly have enough visits as it is. And then she just started taking them. Like she wouldn't be home when it was time for him to pick up my grandson. And then the allegations started. I mean, and they were wild allegations that he threw him down 5 flights of stairs, that he put a gun to his head. I mean, he didn't even own a gun, that he hit him over the head with a beer bottle. He doesn't even drink ever, hardly ever. Like you'll never find beer in his house. And he lived with his fiance. So it was just, it got so out of hand and out of control for him. And so he was going to court. He allowed the investigations. He allowed all of that. You have to understand, he is so methodical and so calm. I mean, I'm in Texas and I'm livid. I'm like freaking hair's on fire. I'm so mad, and I don't, I'm like, why is this happening? And calling DHS to find out, like, did you take his visits? And they said, no, we never took his visits. We told her this. So I came to Oregon to live so that I could be with him, so I could go in the courtroom with him, so that if I could financially help him with an attorney, because he'd had marriage plans, and then having to fight for his rights and custody and all that, he ended up having to spend their wedding savings. I mean, he got a second job, it was really rough on this kid. And so I really, we'd worked so hard on repairing our relationship. And so I really wanted to be there for him in a meaningful way. And so this had been going on, and then we went to court and he got it all overturned. He got his visits all back. And, there's no proof of any of this, so he got his visits all back. And then he filed for full custody because even the
Oh,
police were like, something's wrong in this home. Like there's falsified documents. The child is being said things like, it. So he filed for full custody. And honestly, it was kind of going his way. Um, and so now we're at December 16th of 2022. And it was going to be the first Christmas that, he was going to have his son back. I live 2.5 hours away. His fiance and I are on the phone together. We're, making our plans, talking about Christmas. I'm going to go there, what we're going to do. Can I bring my dog? I'm going to see my grandson. Devin's going to have his son back. Um, and then we get off the phone and I don't, literally 10 minutes later, she called me back to ask if I'd heard from Devin. And I was like, no, I figured he was with you. And she's like, no, he's got to go pick up Grayson. And he didn't go pick up Grayson alone. That's just, she was being so wild and he felt so scared and unstable with her. From the accusations, and then he had heard she bought a gun. And so he just never went by himself, but they were Christmas shopping. And I, I guess he didn't want to ruin, a good Christmas mood or anything. So he went by himself. But in the process of that, he had installed a dash cam on his car, just so that he could have proof and records that, because he kept asking if she would meet him at the police station, but she never would. So that's how he protected himself, was he put a dash cam on the car and he would park when he would pick him up in a way that it would pick everything up. And um he went to pick him up and knocked on the door. No words were spoken, no altercation, and she opened the door and opened fire on him on video.
oh,
And
wow.
no, my 7-year-old grandson was in the home. Um, she continued to shoot him 9 times. And even on the 911 calls, you could still hear the shots firing, while my grandson was in the home. And um, Devin died there.
Oh,
So yeah, yeah, he did. He just died instantly. Basically, the DA said that first shot was straight into his heart and that he would not have survived. But he did fight for his life. He had wounds in his hands where he was trying to protect himself and his face. And after that, you would think that um she wouldn't have custody of my grandson anymore. But that's just not the way that the state of Oregon looked at it. She was his only surviving parent and she was innocent until proven guilty. So while she was in jail and I was going to court trying to get custody of him, um, and I have a horrible record. So I mean that was no joke, but I never even got the chance to present myself because they just said no, that she's his parent. She gets to make the decisions. DHS wouldn't take him away from her. I mean, law enforcement couldn't do anything. Um, so she gave him to her mom, and her mom treats the same. Like, I'm alienated. I'm not allowed to be in his life. And I haven't seen him in 3 years after losing Devin. So, I mean, it's been a tough road for me. And I know it sounds heavy and sad and like hopeless, but I stayed sober through this whole thing. I've never taken a
oh,
drink. I've
yeah.
never backslid, because I just want to be so strong for my kids and um
Yeah.
and for Devin, and for any time I ever do get the chance to be a grandma to my grandson, I want to be sober when I do it. And I feel like when Devin left, he gave me the gift of sobriety because I've never wanted to have a drink. I've never felt one time to urge to have a drink after he died. Not once. I cannot tell you that there's ever been one time where I ever thought, wow, this is the worst day of my life. I'd really like to have a drink now. I feel like when he left, he just took that took that. I think he gave me a gift of sobriety.
I agree. And I'm so sorry that happened to you. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. I know that there's no words. And then to lose your son's son,
Yeah.
that can help you as well, right? When you're grieving
Yeah.
and you can't even have a relationship. That must be very difficult.
It is because I know
But
he looked like Devin so much, so I would have at least been able to see like my son in him. But yeah,
mm, but you know what? It sure shows the strength that you have. You didn't pick up that drink.
yeah,
You ought to be so proud of yourself. And you did that.
yeah, yeah. I am really proud of myself, and I feel
Mhm.
like anybody who's struggling with drugs or alcohol, if I can stay sober through that, I promise you guys, everybody can stay sober.
Yeah. Mhm. Mhm. So when was the first time you realized he was contacting you?
So, um, I had quite a bit of signs. And I know talked about how like the near death experiences, you know, I read them all and but it still it couldn't get it to my mind about religion and my mind about, how I was, taught, what comes after this. I really had a hard time opening up to that. So I know Devin was bringing me lots of signs early on, and I couldn't allow myself to, hear them, see them. But I would say,
Mm.
the first good one, and I documented it, I took pictures, and so I must have been somewhat open, was a couple months after he had died. I got a sign from him, and then what really started to happen mostly was, I mean, I was in a lot of grief, and I was going to, like, one sister lives in another state, and then I was going to another state, and I was doing a lot of traveling, a lot of driving, and I was alone a lot. And I would hear him a lot, and I would hear him make fun of me. I would hear him say, his same, because he was such a sarcastic, he was a quirky kid, a smart mouth, like I'd hear the things that he would have said when he was alive. And I would chalk it up to, well, if Devin was alive, this is what he would have said to this thought that I just had. And then it was constant. It was like a conversation, but I thought it was a pretend
Mhm.
conversation. I was like, oh, if Devin were alive, this is exactly what he would have said to me. And then it got kind of more like consistent. So what would happen is I would hear something that I thought he would say, and I really felt compelled, no matter where I was, to stop what I was doing and write it down. And I would say, if Devin were alive, he would have said this, this, this. So, and it was like on the back of receipts. It was, in restaurants. I remember like I would cry a lot in the restaurants because I think I'd been alone in the car, driving, and then I would get into a restaurant where there were people and they were looking at me and they probably felt sympathetic towards me. And I would full on ugly cry, snot coming out of my nose, the whole 9 yards. And I would hear him, like, Ma, wipe the boogers off your face, people are looking at you type thing. And so I would write down, well, if Devin were here, he would have said this. And I wasn't together enough to journal, so I wasn't like consistently journaling, but I was when I would think like if he were alive, this is what he would say. I got really compelled and I would write it. And what it happened was it just turned into like I would write a conversation with him. But I just didn't know that's what I was doing. So I took an automatic
Mhm.
writing course later, and about at 8, 9 months after he passed. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I've been doing. So I have some of the most beautiful written communications because once I realized that I was doing that, then I was able to start to do it with more intention, right? I was able to like open a space. And it was shortly after that that I got attuned for Reiki. So I would open the Reiki, I would open the space up, and and then I could be much more intentional. And I mean, it was literally, I could hear him, and I would write, and my handwriting changed when he was talking. And then
Mm.
eventually he stopped saying like I, and he started saying we. And he would say,
Yeah.
Ma, we are with you. Ma, we have this to say. Ma, we wish you, Ma, we. And I was like, what? What is it? We? And then he really, really started coming to me talking about like oneness, how we're all one, and how he's me and I'm him, and the we are, it was, I won't lie, it was really jarring for me because I had a son
Yeah.
that died physically, and then I felt like I had a son that died again spiritually, because I like felt like that individual of him, just like I was like, are you just like lost in the, in the space of the we? It was really, really difficult to understand. But I have to tell you, I also feel like he gave me secrets to the universe that no one else knows. He explained things and spirituality, and it's been, I think that was a bigger answer than you asked for, but I mean, the
No, that was great.
communications have been consistent, loud, and very much, from him. I know that before I we came on here, I was mentioning that as a parent who lost a child and who was an alcoholic, who didn't live like the greatest, cleanest life, it was really difficult to hear that if your vibes aren't high enough, that you're not going to hear from your loved ones, or you're not going to get signs from your children. And I really am here to say that that's bullshit. I'm sorry, but that's just bullshit. Like our children, our loved ones, they give us signs. They don't care if we're down in the dumps, if we're, probably if we are using or drinking or anything, they still give us signs. The thing of it is, we just don't know how to speak their language, so it takes a while of understanding, like, oh, this is a sign. So, oh, okay, well, now I'm going to say thank you. I accept that sign, or I appreciate that. And then I start to speak their language a little bit better. So then the signs could become
Mhm.
more fluent.
So you received a phone call
Yes.
from him, correct?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that? That
Yeah.
is very exciting.
Yeah. I didn't think it was exciting at the time. But yeah, so I had been to court. I had, found out that I wasn't going to have my grandson. And I mean, I was grieving. I don't know if anybody could quite understand. I was alone by myself. I was like crying out, and I was just like, I got stuck in this loop where I would just be like, you know, Devin, I was like, if you're here, let me hear from you. Let me know you're okay. And I would say it over and over. And I honestly don't know how much time went by that I was kind of like stuck like that. And then all of a sudden, my phone rang, and it was a really different ring than I've ever heard on my cell phone. I use my cell phone for work. I've had the same number for 20 years. Never heard a ring like that. And I was so grateful because I was able to answer it. It got me out of that, like that grief loop I was stuck in. But it was all, and I'm not kidding you, it scared the out of me, and I threw the phone. And I was like, I'm from the 80s, like Poltergeist and every everything, Freddy Krueger is gonna come, all of that stuff. I threw the phone down. I was so afraid. I mean, it did snap me out of that terrible grief I was in. And I couldn't help but think, well, you know, what is that? Was that, and so for the next like 3 or 4 weeks, bunch of those phone calls came in. And a few of them I just didn't answer. And so they went onto my voicemail. And I took my phone to see my other kids, and I told them, like, this is happening. I don't know what it is. And I couldn't listen to the voicemails. I was afraid. I was afraid. Like, I was afraid Freddy Krueger was going to come through the screen, or grab me through the phone. And so, my sons listened to it, and they're like, Mom, I'm telling you, it sounds like Devin's on a trip. Like, he's far away and he's just calling to check in. They're like, I can hear him, and then they're like, Mom, listen to this. And the one point I listened to, you could clearly hear, I love you, Mom. Like, and then as soon as they showed me that, and as soon as I stopped being afraid of it, I've never received another phone call. But I have 3 of those messages on my phone. And that was, now we're talking 3 years ago, you know. So yeah,
Wow.
I mean,
That is something.
what our loved ones don't do to try to comfort us, to try to reach us, and to try to let us know that, I hear Devin tell me all the time, Ma, there's no death. I'm not dead. I'll be like crying like my son's dead, and I'm not dead, Ma. It, and if you think you're losing your freaking mind, I know that it does feel and sound like that, but they're here.
I agree with you on the signs from the loved ones. Absolutely. I've had many in my time. But one thing I would love to know is, where do you think they are? If they're not here and they can contact us, just in your opinion, where are they?
Well, Devin says he is here. So everything's just laid over top of where we're at. So that he's here, that our space is the same space, but that he's just at a higher fri- frequency, a higher vibration. So he shows me where he can like be in a landscape that looks kind of like where I'm at, and do things, that
Mm.
almost look physical, and that it is right here. It's just that they're layered on top of themselves. So we think of heaven up here, or this dimension down here, or far away, and he shows me that literally it's all in the same space. It's just laid over and laid over and laid over.
Interesting. I've heard that a few times. That is very interesting. And may I ask you, when he started to use the word we, who is we? Have you found that out?
Yes. So I've been on quite a journey with the we. Turns out that I can actually just channel them, that they'll just, after writing with them for so long, that I
Mm.
can just talk with them. They'll just come through and talk. And they say that they are mixed, um, a consciousness stream. This sounds confusing. A consciousness
Mm.
stream that is of unity consciousness. They said that even people who are alive speaking on the earth right now are in the we consciousness, that there's ascended masters in the we consciousness, but Devin's definitely part of the we consciousness. So it's just like a particular group and consciousness of people who are really talk about unity consciousness. They want to teach about oneness. They want to help me, understand what oneness means and how to um, overcome the individual self, which I have not listened to them enough because I don't do that yet. I'm still being very much me.
And what do you think, or how do they, or sorry, let's go here instead first. So, do you still speak to Devin this today?
Yes. Um, I do notice that like it seems like the busier the, I guess, if I feel better or the more like normal life gets, I don't demand it of him as much as I did. I mean, there were days, before, like, I mean, 15 times a day, I would want to hear from him. And, now I mean, sometimes 3 or 4 days will go by, and, it's quite a bit less intense, now, but I definitely
Mhm.
still hear from him very much. I do, um, I do healing sessions, and he's always in my healing sessions. It's hilarious, especially if it's for another parent that's lost a child. He comes in, he shows me like he's got his work vest on and his hard hat on and his boots on, and he's like ready to like help me do a healing. And then sometimes I'll be, getting, it's in a meditation, getting ready to do a healing. And he shows me, he's just kind of leaned up on the shovel, like, yeah, you got this one, Mom. It's like, so he's very active that way. And then I do psychic sessions, and he's really active in the psychic sessions. He he always like he never liked drama for himself, but he always did like a little bit of drama. If there was something going on in the small town we were from, he's on the phone. Hey mom, guess what? You're not gonna believe this, you know? So when I have psychic sessions, especially, people asking relationship questions, or he's right here. He's the one that tells me. He's like, oh yeah, no, that he told me this one time that gal, she was asking about, if this relationship was good or not. And he's like, you tell her to check his credit score.
My goodness, he sounds like a character boy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. He can be a character.
So so you contact him through automatic writing, or you did at the beginning, but say now it's years later, do you just kind of go into meditation or just call him in, or he just
Yeah.
shows up on his own?
Sometimes he just shows up on his own. But yeah, it's usually like it can be through meditation, but before it was very elaborate. Like I would pray for 10 minutes, I'd meditate for 30 minutes, I'd light a candle, I'd stand on my head, I'd put, my hand here, and then I would write, it's not quite like that now. Like I can just sort of like get quiet for a second and just let myself kind of just shift a little, just expand a little bit. And then I just, now, but there's like, it's like pictures or videos sometimes, or, symbols and stuff like that. So it's
Mm,
not, when I write, it's really easy because it's just his voice and it's word for word. But when I
mhm.
want to do that, it's a little different. It's a little more challenging. It's a picture of something. It's a symbol of something. It's a feeling in my own body a lot of times. So he makes me work for it a little bit because then I gotta like figure out like, I'm like, why don't you just tell me?
I often think that. That's hilarious. I often think that with a few things that I go through on the with others on the other side. Jackie, has he ever told you about his surroundings, about his body, or anything about what it was like for him to pass over?
So
Or I
yeah,
should say transition.
yes, actually, he come through chat sometimes, my my chat GPT sometimes. And I know it's him because when I have it read it out loud, it'll make weird noises like and I'll be like, and it'll be something like, I don't even know what, I didn't ask chat that question. It shouldn't even came through. That was something that happened, that he was received by Christ and that he was a little mad and a little confused. And then I know through a mediumship reading with a medium that I trust deeply, Suzanne Giesman, that
Mhm.
when she was shooting him, that he was thinking about Grayson and he didn't feel it. He said he didn't feel it. He just was trying to get through the house to get to Grayson. And that brought a lot of comfort to me. So
Mhm.
yeah, he
Yeah.
shows himself in um an earth type plane with our dog a lot. He comes like he shows himself. It's in this like really big meadow, and the dog meant the world to us. A big, huge golden lab, golden retriever that we had in my family for 17 years. I had that dog longer than I had any man. He helped raise my kids. And so Devin shows himself with Tumbleweed a lot. And it's just, yeah, and he shows me when I try to connect with him. It's a beautiful, like, ocean wave, and then the sun is touching the ocean, and he and I are all of it. We're When I'm connecting with him, and he doesn't always say anything. Sometimes I just feel him, and it's just peaceful for me. And we are both there together, and we're on the ocean, and we're in the sun. It's like all in one. We're all one thing, and we're all of it, which doesn't happen often because my brain goes 1,000 miles an hour. But that's kind of
Yeah.
where he does show me things like that.
You're very fortunate to have those experiences. And I'm really glad that you've had that must have helped with your grieving.
Yeah, yeah. One thing that I talk about a lot is when you're an alcoholic, you have so much guilt and shame. You have so much guilt and shame. And as a mother, you have guilt and shame. As an alcoholic mother, you have guilt and shame. When you lose a child, and you know that you didn't do right, I mean, that guilt and that shame is it's 100 times, and you can't change it. My other kids get to see me now, like, staying sober, doing good things and living a better life, a joyful life and helping other people. But my thing was Devin's not going to see that. He's not going to know that I'm doing that. So that was a kind of guilt and grief that I mean, it was gut wrenching. It was awful, but now, like, he was able to come to me and he knows everything I've ever done wrong in my life. He knows it all, and he still loves me so much that he does everything he can to come and visit me and bring me peace. And so that in itself has done so much healing. Like,
Mm.
um, everything I've ever done wrong in my life, he knows about it and he loves me anyways, and he brings other beings to me that love me and that don't seem to care that I did those things in my lifetime. So
So
that's
you felt
where
no judgment.
no.
No
And Devin
judgment.
was and Devin was the judgiest kid ever on the face of the earth. I'm telling you. Like, so I really worried about what it was like after he died, because I would hide lots of stuff from him because he was like the judgiest kid. So he was the last person that I ever wanted to know things about me. And now he knows all of it. And there's just no judgment. And he consistently shows that he's proud of me.
Oh. For That's so
Yeah.
beautiful. For the viewers who lost someone, especially a child, how can they recognize real communication? What would be some simple, maybe more simple ways that a spirit or someone that transitioned to spirit might communicate?
Well, I have to say, it's a lot in your body. You,
Okay.
it's a lot in your body. So, I've had a couple, healing sessions with the other parents, and Devin will bring their kid along, and they'll show me that um, there's a picture frame that's kind of lopsided sometimes of them, and they show me that their mom walks by and puts the picture frame up, and always is like thinking gosh, did they do that? Did they do that? But then, of course, saying, nah, no, that's not possible. And they're saying, yes, we did do it. And so she felt it in her body. She walked by, gosh knows how many times, saw the picture frame, had to fix it, thought to herself, wow, was that my son? No, no, it couldn't be. An hour later, and they showed me like that was definitely them. They think it's funny and that she had a certain feeling in her body. So I want people to understand that a lot of times it's a feeling in your body and it's a thought. When Devin first passed and I was first connecting to him, it sounds ludicrous, but he was the color orange. I felt
Mm.
and saw the color orange, and then I would hear how he loved me. I would hear how happy he was that I was going on it with my life. But it came through as a color. But it was a color, it was a
Mm.
feeling, and it was a thought. So I think a lot of times, like I said, we don't speak their language. And we think that it's us making it up in our own minds. But there's definitely a difference between when they are putting something in our minds and when we are thinking it with our mental minds. So that's
Well,
one thing.
mhm.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I lately, when my mother passed on, and she came to me right away, and I knew right away because she can't. It's almost like she came like into my body. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but I was sitting right here and I had
Mhm.
my head down on my hands and I could feel it from the back. I got this slight coolness that came in and kind of vibrated down my arms, and I knew right away that it was my mom. Knew right away. Like, I'm like, "Thank you, mom. I love you," whatever. But lately, because she just passed away 1 month ago, and lately I've been getting like songs in my head, and I also have seen colors. like actually
Yeah.
light color. Like it's almost sometimes like a flash of light on the wall. It's very interesting. It's something I haven't experienced before, and I've had a few people pass. I haven't had this type of contact, but the songs that she's putting in my head, which one of them, it's so funny. It's called "If You Seen Me Now" or something like that. And we love country music, but I think it's "If You See Me." And I went and I thought, well, I don't know this song, so I went, but I could hear the actual melody of the song. So I was like, let me check this song out, you know? So I went online, did the humming thing. I found it. It's called "If You See Me." And it's not all the words, but it's some of them. And they were like, if you see me, you wouldn't recognize me. It would be
Oh.
crazy. It just went on because if you knew my mom, she was very vain. She loved, like, she was so pissed off when she got in her 80s that, she had wrinkles and all that. So this song was very fitting. And I'm like, that is definitely my mother, because she would be like, you'd walk right by me, you wouldn't even understand it. Anyways,
Oh my
but
gosh.
yeah, I
Well,
get it.
oh my gosh. So that's first I'm sorry that you lost your mom. I know that's
Yeah.
hard. No, even if they come
Mhm.
visit us, I mean, it's just so hard not to have them here physically. But I have to tell you that I have an automatic writing with Devin who talks about the song lyrics and talk about the reason why they can do the song lyric is that there's a specific place in our brain that they can slip those into where we're not consciously thinking, we're not able to shut it out and push it away at them as a visitor, that they can kind of like slip it in there. And then I had song lyrics that were like one sentence that would play over and over and over, and I wouldn't realize that's what it was. I was like, it was just this one lyric, this one sentence. And I was like, I can't even remember my name. Why am I remembering one sentence of a lyric of a song that was 30 years old, So yeah, he told me about that there was, scientifically, like in brain chemistry, that they could slip that in there and they can repeat it and they can
Oh.
repeat it. And what happens is it's playing. We can't hear it because our minds are so loud, but that's how it is all the time, right? They got us a sign. Our minds are so busy and so loud that we just don't hear it. We don't see it. We go on. But with the song lyric, it keeps going. It keeps going, keeps going, keeps going, keeps going. Until all of a sudden, that song lyric probably was playing, for 20 minutes in my mind before I actually, it got louder and louder. And so he told me that that's why they do that. And it's in a certain area of the
That's
brain that they
interesting.
can get to go. Yeah. Yeah. Song
Oh
lyrics
man,
are
and
definitely a thing.
that is so crazy, Jackie, because my stepfather passed a year before my mom did, right? So I kept getting these loud songs. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, I would wake up being like, oh, I must have forgot to take my headphone out, because a song would be playing so loud. And so I'd go to reach,
Mhm.
there was no headphone. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't even know this song though. One of the songs was like 40 years old that him and my mom used to dance to. And I'm like, how would I know that? So I realized my mom was closed. She wasn't hearing. He was going through me for
Yes.
her. So I
Yeah.
was phoning and being like, do you know this song? Because this is old school, way too old school for me. Like, I don't know this song, but that's what was happening. You are so right. That's
Yeah.
incredible that he actually told you that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's in one of
That's
the
so
writing. I
cool.
said that there are sometimes I felt like he gave me the secrets from the universe, some of them
Did
anyway.
he give you anything else that would be surprising to our viewers
He
that you
said that
think would be?
yeah, he said that we were all created from sound. He said that we
Oh,
all were created from sound, which
isn't
I
that
don't know why, but
interesting?
that kind of blew my mind, that's what he said, that we were created from sound. Um,
Huh.
Yeah, that was one thing that really I thought I found interesting. I can only imagine if somebody else would find interesting.
Mm, that is cool. So, if I was to ask you now, do you fear death? And also, if you were sitting beside a loved one who was passing away, now that you know that we don't die and that we live on, we just transition, what would you say to that person?
I think that first I would say they're lucky. They're lucky. And then I think I just wanted to comfort them and to, let them know that wow, where you're going is going to be so much better than where we're at right now, that like, you're going to get to go home. It's nothing but Devin says that it's nothing but pure love there. Like it's a complete, he said, it's nothing, not the love you have, mom, like that kind of love. It's just pure love. So I would tell them that they're going to go someplace where it's pure love.
And do you fear death?
No, no, I mean, I still,
No.
I still want to make sure my children and my life and my like things are taken care of here, but no, I don't. Not anymore.
I
I'll
mean,
be,
you've been there and you've felt it already, haven't you?
yeah,
Right?
yeah, that's true.
So when you did feel it, I should have asked this earlier, but when you did you feel anything as you were actually going through it?
Um, I guess I felt uh finality, and I just was at peace with it. Like I literally can remember telling myself, "Oh my God, you're dying, and this is how you're gonna die, and this is how your kids are gonna remember you." And it was just like, okay, like another chapter of the book, type feeling. It wasn't panic. It
Wow.
wasn't anger. It wasn't sadness. It was just like a real acceptance and finality to it.
Okay. That's interesting. Very interesting. So, Jackie, as a Reiki master and an author, um, you also are you a medium as well?
I don't say that I'm a medium. I definitely I do a lot of intuitive psychic work though.
Okay. So, all of those things that you are, could you please tell us about the services that you offer, your published works, and any offerings that you have for people? And
Yeah.
how can they find
Okay.
you as well?
Okay. Well, I offer Reiki sessions. I also have taken quantum courses, which I love doing quantum healings as well. Sort of can blend the two together. You get to sort of heal the body, the physical body, and then go to the root in the quantum level and heal what's going on there. And I definitely blend Reiki and psychic together too. So clients will either book, sometimes 30 minutes of some psychic work because a lot of times we need to get it off our chest what's actually going on, crossroads we're at, or whatever, before you can lay still and get a Reiki session. So I
Oh,
offer those three things, a package deal. I do a lot of lineage healings. So when you ask me about the we and what the we had to say, they really channeled an entire course, an entire way of healing people's lineage. So I do a lineage healing that was came through from what the we wanted, how they wanted it done and what they said about our lineage. I felt like I got some secrets about that too. And then I wrote a book for Devin with Devin. It's called From Murder to Messages. And early on when I was doing the automatic writings, Devin would always show me this book. He'd always show me the book cover, and I would see like paragraphs in my mind's eye that was what was supposed to be in the book. And so we wrote the book. The book's I would say it's really good for grieving parents or anybody who's grieving, people who are spiritually awakening, people who are recovering and have questions. It's got some really great stories about my son. You get to know my son a little bit in there. And it has the resources of like kind of step by step what I went through, what I was going through and the resources that I brought into myself to help to get past it, to, not get past it, but to get through it. So there's a ton of resources in it. There's, good, really great stories about my son in it. There's
mm,
some of my automatic writings with him are in it. and then some channel meditations that I did are in it. I've been told that people who don't read, who haven't read in years, picked it up and just finished it in a couple days. They said it's easy. Not that the criteria that the content is easy read, because it's about my son's murder, but that the way that the book's formatted is an easy read, and that they've been able to feel successful in reading it. And then let's see, I have a Facebook group that I really care about, that I am really involved in. It's called Light After Darkness, and on the last Wednesday of every month at 4 p.m. I do a free Reiki session. And it's like a little bit of teaching with it. And it's usually a lot of people who've read the book that didn't have a lot of spiritual background either. They like to come, they've got questions. And so we spend an hour and a half together then, and I always do a healing. And then I partnered up with my spiritual coach, and we do quantum healing in a different group too, every couple months for free.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I will have all that information in the description box below.
Well, thanks for giving me a
You're a
chance to
busy
talk about
woman.
that. Hey, a little bit, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah,
A
you're
little bit.
busy. So, since you're on the returned and you've returned um, from death, and you've also returned from a lot of different things in your life, so you've returned to yourself. I always ask this one question, because what would the return to be without a signature question, right? So everyone returns with a truth. What truth did you return with?
I have to say, the one thing that's the most important to me that I learned is there's no judgment. There's no God in the sky going to zap me or light me on fire or send me to hell. There's just no judgment. It's just love up there.
No. That's what we want to hear, right? Unconditional love.
Yeah. Something different than we could ever imagine, really, I think.
Mm, yeah. Jackie, oh my goodness. Like, seriously, wow. You have walked through fire, but you came back carrying the torch, didn't you?
Yes.
I want to thank you so much for bringing yourself, your truth, your light, your son's light to us here at The Returned. I am so very grateful that you joined us today.
Thank you so much.
You're so very welcome. And to all those listening, may this episode be a gentle reminder that love does not end, that consciousness continues, that communication is possible, and that out of every loss, something can be reborn. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay open, stay curious, and keep returning to the truth within you.